Right, welcome to part two, the playlist. So once you've used your sequencer and you've created some sort of pattern, let's just listen to this again. It's very basic stuff, but once you've created your sequence, it saves this sequence or this certain pattern you made as a file type that's called a pattern. And this little box you see here on the side here of the playlist is basically just lists all of the patterns you made. So if you, oh boy. And by the way, if you always want to get hold of a specific window, up here are a bunch of shortcuts that you can use to reach them. You can also use, if you look to the, if I hover my mouse over here and you keep your eye here, you can see what the shortcuts are for these. If you want to view the playlist, you can just you press F5, piano rolls F7, and for the sampler or no, the channel track, you can just press F6. Well, yeah, that's basically the sequencer, channel track, whatever you want to call it. So once you've created a pattern, which is this, then you can start composing, right? And by default, you have these bunch of tools up here in the playlist which do a bunch of things, and I'm not even sure what all of these do because I don't. No, maybe I do. But yeah, you can actually do a lot of this stuff here with a bunch of shortcuts as well. So one of the first things you'll see up here is Nero, and then you get a bunch of options. For editing and stuff like that, you can basically do a lot of stuff. What I usually check first is allow resizing from the left. And you can check this also inside of the playlist. It helps you be able to resize notes and patterns from the left. Usually it doesn't allow that for some reason, which is stupid. So I usually go up to edit and allow resizing from the left. It just makes your life a whole lot easier. Yeah, so you have a bunch of settings here you can look at. I'm not going to cover all of them, but you have a bunch of guides and stuff. You can, in the playlist, you can also make markers by, I think the shortcut is Alt-M. No, that did something else. Okay, that just moved this region, but we'll get to that. Alt, or you could just go to View, Add Marker, I think, or Edit Add Marker. Usually it just takes a little bit of looking around for this stuff. Yeah, here's time markers. Add one Alt-T. Okay, so if you come, yeah, it's always, they give you the bunch of like shortcuts and stuff that you can check out. So Alt-T, nope, that didn't work. Alt-T. Yeah, and then you can mark parts of your track with all kinds of stuff. You can basically say, this part is the drop. Oh, the most important bit. All the kids are doing it these days. Yeah, and you can mark a bunch of parts, do it as many times as you want. Basically, rename a bunch of stuff and move it around. Don't know why I called it drop at. It's supposed to be drop 2, but okay, whatever. We'll keep it. It's original. So yeah, you basically compose all of the bunch of patterns you make in the sequencer, and you can paint them in here. So yeah, here's a bunch of settings you can look at. I'm not familiar with all of this stuff, but usually what I do, each window has a bunch of settings, and what I also do for the, I recently installed FL Studio 20 on this computer because I use two computers, and what I usually do here is I go to View and I change the keyboard style to, not the keyboard style, the keyboard labels. I want to show all notes, right? Because I'm not familiar with all the music theory and all that stuff, and maybe I make this stuff flat. Yeah, it just makes everything a little bit clearer to me. But I'm not sure. I don't change a lot of the settings here. You can, for some keyboard shortcuts, which I usually use, for zooming, you basically just do, you hold Control and you can zoom and zoom in like this. I think Shift just moves around a specific pattern. I don't ever use that. I basically just take something, move it around, and just delete the other one or whatever. And you also have these controls above the scrolly situations, which you can zoom. And you can change the thickness of these tracks by going up here above the right scrolly situation. And you can change the thickness. You might find yourself sometimes accidentally pressing, what is it? I think this is the zoom button. If you hold Z, if I've been working a lot in Photoshop and I want to zoom in, I accidentally do something like, well, if you have your keyboard shortcuts turned on, you do something like this, and it's like, oh shit, where am I? And it's crazy, and everything's all over the place. Do not fret, hold control, zoom out as far as you can, and then just adjust the situation right here. Yeah, see, you accidentally do something like that, and stuff happens. It's bad. So yeah, just fix it up here, and you have your view ready. Everything's great. Nothing to worry about. All is well. So yeah, and the first tool we'll be looking at right here is probably the pencil tool. You probably use that the most for, oh, not the most. Well, you can basically copy a track. You can't paint a track. So if you click and hold, you can basically move a track around and stuff like that. The other one, this is the paint tool, is probably the one you use the most. If you've created a pattern, you can repeat it a bunch of times, paint it all over the show, and it's pretty awesome. Pretty cool stuff. And then you have a little delete button, which is completely useless because all you have to do if you want to delete something is you're going to either have the pencil tool or the paint tool in your hand, and you just right click and you get rid of stuff. It's as easy as that. So I'm not that sure why they have this stuff. And then you have a mute button, which you can click on certain tracks to mute them, which is completely useless because you could either just get rid of them. And then you have a slip tool for if you have a really long pattern. Let's say you have a pattern that's that's nice. So you can basically slip a pattern back like that so it doesn't cut it. So if you're basically using the pen tool or the paint tool, you're cutting it. So if you use the slip tool, you're basically just slipping it around under there. It's pretty cool. It's probably like video editing, because I do some video editing as well. You have a slip tool in there as well. And then you have a cut tool. This one I use pretty often. If you have a really long pattern, or let's say a sample. Let's bring a sample in here. Fuck, some sliced beats. I do not remember what... That's gonna get copyrighted because I have some derezzed stuff in there. Let's say, you know what, I have some beats. So here somewhere with stuff I made. I have a little... Let's say you have a beat like this, right? And you want to cut it up and change stuff around. You can cut stuff around, and you see this thing is not straight at the beginning. If you want to cut and stuff, what I usually do is I hold Shift, so it brings up this like really straight line. So you can go in there, really get in there, and make sure you cut the beats at the right spots and stuff like that. So yeah, you probably use that a lot for samples and stuff, and it's pretty great. One thing I forgot to mention, right here, right to the left, you have this in the playlist as well, is the snapping grid. So basically you can snap your patterns to certain steps in the sequencer. So if you change this to, let's say, a third step, you'll see that the grid changes to three beats per bar, basically. So if you want to create beats which are like, instead of having four, let's say you don't want to have something like 4 hi-hats between 4 kicks. Oopsie, this is not good. And also, if you want to switch between playing something in the sequence, like the sequence alone, and looping it, you have a little button right here next to the play button, which says pattern, and one that says song. So if you just want to play the pattern, then you just click the pattern button. If you want to play the song, it switches over to the song. And then you can move around the playhead. If you have it set on pattern, you see that the playhead really, it just disappears. So yeah, let's say you want to have 3 beats instead of 4 between each, 4 hi-hats between each beat. Because now it's like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and you go into the situation, and you want to have like 3 steps, 1/3 steps, third notes, and now you just change the grid. So if you zoom out a little bit, it changes with the zooming because it keeps dividing whatever you measuring situation you have by like 3. So now you can see you can a shortcut for creating more notes is Control B. So you just hold Control and then B, and then it copies a note. I do this a lot because I used to like write things out every time, and it was really annoying. Control B works a ton, and you can copy like a bunch of notes and Control B them. You know, it's pretty awesome. And now you have a third note situation. I should really look up the terminology for this stuff because I'm useless with it. I don't actually know. I actually had to learn music theory on my own. I didn't actually get any formal education in this stuff, so I don't actually know what the names are for this stuff. But yeah, you basically have third notes. So yeah, that's for the snapping. You can change that stuff up here, and if you wanna, usually if I do something with samples, I usually put the snapping down to like none, so you can, everything's out of time, so it doesn't snap and it's not in a beat or whatever. And that can get really frustrating if you put it here and you forget how the snapping works and you try and line up everything, because if you try and write stuff, it doesn't snap to the grid. So yeah, snapping is really important. So yeah, remember snapping. Good one. Okay, so you have a little mute button, slip tool, cutting tool. Select is also useless because if you have the pencil or whatever selected, you can just hold Control and then you can select a bunch of stuff. So that's also completely useless. Zooming, as I told you, you just hold Control and then scroll, and then you can zoom into stuff, or Shift and then Control Shift. No. How do you zoom in with this stuff again? I think it's Alt. Oh yeah, if you hold Alt, then you zoom in vertically. So yeah, and then you have a playback button, which is if you press Y basically and you don't have your keyboard selected. This little shortcut up here is if you want to have, just see how we're doing on time here. Oh shit. So this little let's go, we just covered all of these things. This little button right here is if you want to play back something. Yeah, which is also not really useless because you could always just move the playhead to whatever and just press spacebar to play. So yeah, these tools up here are not the most amazing shit, but whatever. They're there, and they just kept them there because some people like them, and FL Studio is kind of old, so yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much, I think, everything I need to cover about the playlist. You have the tracks up here, and you can also change the size of them. You can also just drag around the sizes for them, but if you can't line up and you like neatness like me, and it's like, oh, they're all different sizes, I can't deal with this shit, you just right click, size 100%, right click, size 100%. And I think there's some sort of categorization situation here, if I'm not, let's say, yeah, you can insert tracks and delete tracks and stuff like that. It's really simple. And because this is FL Studio, you only have 500. You used to have only 200, but I have never used more than 10. So yeah, I think there's some sort of way you can create subcategorizations in this thing, sort of like Reaper, but I am not sure about that. Yeah, well, that's the basics of this situation right here. And then you have 4 beats make up a bar, and 4 bars make up a bigger bar. I don't fucking know. Yeah, so yeah, this is pretty much the playlist. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Oh, also this situation right here, you have your patterns and you have your samples and you have your automation clips. And automation clips we'll cover in another video because they're quite a thing on their own, but they're wonderful and they'll change your life. So stuff like that. So yeah, if I need to change anything about my tutorials, please let me know. And thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Where we'll be covering a little bit about the mixer, probably, and that's probably going to take a while because there's a lot of stuff to cover there. But I will cover the basics. So thanks for watching. See you later, and bye bye.